What's up guys, Patio from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up the WET-44 Pro outdoor and indoor wall mount 70 volt speakers. They come in two different colors of black and white, but the setup and function for each is the exact same. So it comes with two speakers with the swivel mount already attached to each speaker, and 8 screws so we can mount each speaker onto our wall. Now because these are 70 volt speakers, let me quickly explain how 70 volt systems work. 70 volt amplifiers like this one here allow you to run large amounts of speakers at a fixed and constant wattage. We can do this by tapping each speaker to a certain wattage amount. So for example, if my amplifier here has more than 100 watts that we can use, I can tap each speaker at 10 watts, giving me the ability to set up 10 speakers. So on these speakers, we can access the tap on the back here where we can tap it to either 3.75 watts, 7.5 watts, 15 watts, or 30 watts. There's also a 6 ohm tap so you can use these speakers with any standard stereo amplifier or receiver. Keep in mind if you are using the 6 ohm position to be careful when parallel wiring your speakers because it's going to bring the final impedance down to 3 ohms, which is not compatible with most stereo amplifiers or receivers. Going back to using these speakers with 70 volt systems, if you have a multi-zone amplifier, that opens up the flexibility of where you can have your speakers set up in different rooms and how much volume you want to have in different rooms. And if you want to learn even more about 70 volt technology, check out our video on what is 70 volt. So to mount our speakers, we're just going to take one of our speakers here and take off the swivel mount by unscrewing the knobs on each side. Then from here, we're going to take our swivel bracket and line it up to our wall where we want to mount our speaker. Now we recommend you line the speakers up to a wooden stud behind your wall for extra security. You can find out where the studs are behind your wall by using a stud finder, and then you can line the bracket up anywhere along the spot where your stud is. Generally, studs are spaced out 16 inches apart from each other if you wanted to set up another speaker next to your first one. If you wanted to mount your speakers behind drywall or on a spot on your wall without a stud behind it, that's okay too, as long as you use anchors to do so. You just want to make sure that the screws that come included with your speakers fit inside of the anchors. So for today, since we have a drywall behind us, we're going to use the anchors to install our speakers. Now from here we can actually choose whether we want to have the speakers mounted horizontally or vertically. If you wanted to mount your speakers horizontally, you would want to line up the swivel mount this way, and if you wanted to have it vertically, you would line it up this way. Now when mounting your speakers, you're going to want to consider the sound staging or how you have your speakers positioned so that everyone's hearing the speaker in the best way possible. So for that, you want to set it up so that the middle of your speaker or where your tweeter is pointing toward the targeted area. So for example, if I wanted to set my speakers up in a bar setting, I could actually mount them to the corner of my wall and have it so that the speakers are pointing downwards so that everyone inside can hear the speaker. Now the cool thing is, because this is a swivel mount speaker, we can actually swivel it from left to right or top to bottom. So we can do this by loosening the bolt here in the middle, and then from here we're able to move the bracket around so that we're swiveling the speaker in the position that we want. As soon as you find the position that you want your speaker to be set in, you can tighten this bolt here to lock it in place. So once it's time to mount our bracket, we're going to line it up to the spot on our wall where we want to mount our speaker. For today, we're going to mount the speakers horizontally at head level, but keep in mind those steps that we mentioned before when mounting your speakers. So once we have it all lined up, I can take a pen, pencil, or marker, and I'm going to make marks inside of the holes here on the bracket so we know where to make our holes. So then we can take our drill to make holes in the places that we just made our marks. And because we're using anchors for the install today, we're going to want to find a drill bit size that's going to make big enough holes for our anchors. If there is the stud behind the place where you want to mount your speaker, you can actually just take your screws and drill them into the spots where we made our marks along with your bracket. So once we have all of our anchors installed, we can then take the bracket and line it back up to the holes. Again, from here you might want to consider how you have the speaker angled. So if you want it going up or down, you're going to loosen this bolt here in the middle and move the bracket around so that you have it pointing the way you want. For today, we're going to leave it in the middle here so that it's pointing straight. From here, I can take my my screws and just line them up to the anchors to start. If you want, you can start by working with the opposing corners here. Then you can take your drill with the Phillips head bit and tighten your screws. And we recommend leaving a little bit of slack, so don't tighten them all the way up just yet. Then we're gonna take 2 more screws and then work with the opposite sides now. So now before we line the speaker back up to the bracket, we can now take the time to connect our speaker wire. We can do that by pressing down on the terminals here on the back of the speaker to open them up. Then we're gonna take our speaker wire and connect the red to the positive and the black to the negative. At this point, we can also set the tap for the speaker. So for today, I'm gonna tap it at 30 watts. So after that, we can take our speaker and line it back up to the bracket. And we'll also want to screw these knobs back onto the speaker so that it stays in place with our bracket. The other cool thing is that if we don't tighten these knobs all the way, we can swivel the speaker from left to right. Or if you have it mounted the other way vertically, you can swivel it from top to bottom. And then whenever you find the position you want, you can just fully tighten the knobs back up to lock it in place. Now from here, you'll want to run the speaker wire coming from your speakers to your amplifier. And depending on the amp you're using, you can either run it to the direct output of the amplifier or to different zones if you want to have speakers set up in different rooms. Again, make sure that the red wire goes to the positive terminal and that the black wire goes to the negative terminal. Keep in mind, you can also parallel wire your speakers, so that means you're going from one speaker to another if you want to have multiple speakers set up in a row. If you want to learn more about that, check out our video on how to parallel wire with your 70-volt system. You can also run your speaker wire through your wall or ceiling for a cleaner look to connect to your amplifier. For today, we're going to set up each speaker to their own zone. So now on our amplifier, we'll raise the volume for each zone that we have our speaker set up to. Then we'll raise the master volume for the amplifier. And if you're using an MP3 device like we are today, just make sure that the MP3 or Bluetooth volume is raised on the amp as well. And now we're all set, so let's hear how the speakers sound. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your WET-44 Pro 70-volt speakers. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.